Hi, and welcome to the SaVeg Podcast. I'm Rose, and I'm a content creator going by the handle Cheap Lazy Vegan, and I also own a vegan cafe by the same name as the podcast, which is SaVeg Cafe.
And I'm Daniel, also a vegan, and one of your favorite guest stars on Cheap Lazy Vegan's YouTube channel.
We're two friends currently living in different countries, and we'll be giving our savage take on all things life, veganism, and the latest trending topics.
So basically, whatever comes to our minds, because we love to talk.
You are currently listening to the previous episode of this podcast, but if you would like to listen to this week's episode and get some exclusive content, go over to patreon.com/thesavagepodcast. Episode 7, we are joined once again by Nari.
Yes, we are.
What do you have to say for yourself, Nari?
I like how she doesn't say anything. She just looks at it. It's like, be careful. She might start chewing it or something, you know?
I know. She totally will. Yeah. Anyways, are we already rolling? Are we going? We've already started.
I've got the garage band going. I've got the video going. Oh, God.
And I got Nari going.
You've got Nari going in some kind of jungle forestation.
This be my parental, the forestation. This be my parental's house. Okay.
Do they like plants?
I think they might, you know. Holy, it does look insane. They have so many plants.
No, but
and there's more that you can't see.
I know.
Like,
remember.
There's more here. I don't know. There's more here.
I remember when because I hadn't been to your house for a while, and then when I was back in Calgary, I think your parents either the plants have gotten bigger than I remember, or there's a lot more of them. Because I remember,
I think they've grown out of control.
Yeah, because I remember when I came to your house when I was in Calgary this year, I was just like, holy shit, there's so many plants.
Oh God, there's so many. And like somehow they're all alive because I don't know how to keep plants alive. I don't know about you, but like everything I'd seem to, they all die. Like I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
It's like, I feel like I think it's not just me. I think it's my particular family is cursed because like my parents, every time they get plants. So like my grandma, she's okay keeping plants. And then when she left Canada, she like gave my parents a bunch of plants, like a little tree and all this like really nice stuff.
Oh no.
And it all just died.
No, it's so sad when they die. Seriously, because they're like your little babies. And then when they start dying, you're like, oh my God, what do I do? And then you water it again. And then you're like, no, this isn't helping. Anyways, it's a whole plant thing. And I don't know what to do about it. But apparently I need to get some advice from my parents because clearly they know how to raise
your
plants.
Your parents, they be having they literally have a forest in there. Oh gosh. Anyway.
We also got the wild beast over here. That goes well with the jungle. Okay, sorry about all that, guys. Whew, is it episode 7 or was I just guessing?
No, this is episode 7.
Is this 7?
It is, I think it's 7.
Yeah, I think it is episode 7.
I mean,
All right, guys. It's very confusing because we've been recording like crazy.
I know, this will be our 4th.
Have we not, Daniel?
This is our 4th podcast in 2 days.
I know. What are we doing? Are we becoming workaholics? Is that what's happening?
I think it's going to be crazy.
Oh, God damn. I am inflicting my workaholic nature to you, Daniel. How do you feel about this?
I even sent a text to Christelle because obviously we're going to Barcelona and stuff. And I was like, one of the days we might just have to have it because we're there for a while, right? Like, so I was like,
how long are you there for?
We're there for like 5 days.
Okay, that's not too long.
And
but
I said one of the days I might have to like chill in a coffee shop and do some work because there'd be so much stuff to do.
Oh, God damn. Look at you being a digital nomad.
God, that's the dream, you know? God damn.
Is that the dream?
But yeah, so episode 7. What's our
topic again?
Our topic today, which... what am I trying to say? Our topic today is like life, the truth about life in a big city. Rose and
the truth, our truth.
Yeah, not the truth.
That's it. It's not actually the truth.
Our truth about life in a big city, especially like some of the misconceptions, some of the pros, some of the cons. I think for me, my experience of life in a truly big city was when I lived in London. Because I think Calgary is a big city, but it's not that big. Do you know what I mean? Like
I wouldn't consider Calgary a big city. No, I'd say it's like... I mean, what's considered a big city? It's just a city.
I think if it's like over a couple million, then I think it's starting to be considered big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Because like Vancouver would probably be a big city, right? Like, and that's a couple million. Yeah.
Yes, I think Vancouver, Toronto would be considered big cities. Calgary, I would say, is like, Yeah, Montreal. I don't know how many people live in Montreal. It must be bigger than Calgary, right?
I think it's like 3 or 4 million in Montreal.
Nari just keeps bringing me different toys. This breaks my heart. Look at her face. So like, seriously, I can't. Anyways, she's so cute. Anyways, well, do we have any life updates considering we just recorded?
I know. I'm trying to
3 podcasts.
What's my life update?
Anything interesting in your life that has happened in the last 2 weeks that you didn't discuss in the last 3 episodes?
No. I mean, there's some, it's not really a life update. It's like things that I need to do in the next couple of weeks.
Edit this podcast.
Yeah, I have to edit this podcast. That's one thing. We'll edit like 7 bazillion podcasts. And then another thing that I have to do is, which I'm excited about, but also like a bit nervous as hell. So as a lot of you may know that are listening, so I'm currently in Spain. However, my contract is up for teaching at the end of May. And at that time, I'm going to be, well, not right at the end of May, but I need to book my flight back to Calgary, my one-way ticket. So that's kind of...
Back to Calgary, meaning back home.
I know. That's Daniel. Been on my mind. So I'm just kind of like,
home.
And I'm going to have to start looking at jobs as well, which is like, oh.
Oh, God. Or maybe this will take off.
One can only dream, you know, one can
only hope. Can you imagine if this was our job?
This would be amazing. I would love it. Like, it would just be so fun.
I know, right?
Because we both love talking. So... yeah.
It's like we're having our own talk show, but it's like very cash. And I feel like I can find myself becoming more and more casual. Like I feel like the first episode I was like dressed up, I had makeup on, had my hair did. Now I just like rolled out of bed. The first one, the one that we just recorded, I was literally just in my pajamas.
But this is one of the things I think we should try to do. Cause you know, we kind of talked about it like literally the last, like an hour ago. But it's like, you know, potentially maybe get some other people on that we like interview and stuff. Because I think that...
Yes, I think that is the future.
I think we'll keep going with this. And we're going to be doing it, like we said in our New Year's one, we're going to be doing this every week. So we're going to be doing it 4 times a month. And one of those will be exclusive for Patreon. So we're going to be podcasting a lot. But I think as we move forward, it'll be really cool to like interview some people and like, I don't know, see where it goes.
Oh, goddamn. We're going to have to figure out the logistics of that. Because, I mean, we already fighting for MySpace.
I know, this is so true. But I think
imagine a third person in here. Goddamn.
We wouldn't give them any airtime, would we? It would just be like...
I know, we'd just be talking.
We'd be like, oh, we have this lovely guest on who never speaks. Because we're just talking the whole time.
That would be the ideal guest for us, Daniel.
But I think we could brainstorm ideas, and I think it will be easier like when I'm in Calgary, because then we could record in a space like in your building or something, right? It's where we could like sit down and us be with somebody.
Very
like
true.
A talk show.
Yes, I do have a nice little common area that I can book, and we can probably record some podcasts
which would be
there.
Amazing.
But then like, what the fuck? Like, who are we going to invite that's from Calgary? I think we'd have to invite people that are like not, that are like remote.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean?
The thing, the beauty of it is it's going to be so much easier for us to like, you know, do this when we're in the same city. Cause then we can, you're right. Like, so if you guys have any ideas that are listening, just give us some suggestions of people maybe you'd want us to talk to, or like some ideas that you guys have. Like, feel free, because again, we're open to suggestions and ideas. We'll have our own, of course, but like, you know, any thoughts and ideas of who you'd like us to talk to or topics. So yeah.
But we're kind of all over the place. We're kind of all over the place.
I mean, we are.
So it's like, what's our podcast about even? I don't even know.
It's like well, like we said before, it's like us just generally having a chat about a variety of topics and people just kind of joining us in our little conversation, you know?
Okay. I like the way you describe it, Daniel. You've convinced me. You've sold me.
Getting on the Daniel and Rose roller coaster.
Oh, goddamn. It'd be a wild one.
It'd be a topsy-turvy one. And if you get out of line, Rose will smack you back in order.
Oh my God, Nari's like totally just whimpering. Oh my God, I'm such a crazy dog lady. I can't stop talking about the dog. Like, seriously, this little shit of a dog that I love so much.
So funny.
But she's so smart that she like knows how to like manipulate me. I swear to God. Yeah. So like the other day I was taking her out for a walk, and like when it gets kind of cold, I don't know if I told this in this podcast, but when it gets kind of cold here, I try to put on like a little sweater on her, right?
Yeah.
Which is so cute. And she hates clothes. So I still put it on her. And what happens when I put it on her is she freezes. Her body just like freezes because she's so like, she hates it.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but I'm like, okay, but like last time, like one time, the first time I put it on her, she still went for the walk anyways. But then now when I put it on her, she does not move. She freezes and she doesn't move. I'm like, come on, Nari, let's go for the walk. She doesn't move.
Oh my God.
I tried to bribe her with treats. I try to give her treats and she doesn't move.
She just stands still in the sweater.
Yes. Yes. It's her protest. She's protesting.
Oh my God. That's so funny.
Right. And then I'm thinking, oh shit, like maybe she's sick. I'm thinking like, oh, maybe she doesn't want to go for a walk. And then so like just to test, I take off the sweater, and immediately as soon as I take off the sweater, she's like, okay, let's go.
That's
this
amazing.
Little shit. Yes. So now she just knows how to manipulate the situation.
Yeah. She takes after her. She takes after you, Rose.
Oh, God damn. If I was that smart. Anyways, oh my gosh. Okay, so how do we have so much to say, Daniel?
I don't know.
Can we talk about that for a second?
This is our 4th hour of talking, Rose. Like, I mean,
we've just been talking.
Do we have
for the last like 2 days?
Do we have a problem?
I don't know. Like, I think in one hand, I think it's good because like, we'll never be bored.
Yeah, this is very true.
We just have so much to say.
Exactly. We have just a lot to talk about.
But it's you and I together. I don't always have so much to say with everyone. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's true. That's true.
When you and I are together, it's just a constant flow of conversation, which I love.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. There's never a quiet or dull moment when we're together.
Oh God.
Be it
quiet. Never a quiet moment.
No, be it traveling, be it especially drinking.
Oh God damn. Oh, God damn.
So shall we?
Speaking of which, we need to record our second part of the drinking stories podcast, which we can do very soon. Oh, what is the topic of discussion, Daniel?
So the topic was life, or our savage truth of living in a big city.
All right. So Daniel and I thought it'd be interesting to mainly talk about our experience living in London.
Yeah.
Because London is a big city, I believe.
It is.
Yeah. And Daniel and I both lived there for a bit. I lived there for 2 years total. Yeah. And how many years did you live there, Dan?
So I lived there for nearly 4 years.
God damn.
Which is crazy.
And Daniel, I feel like, is a little country boy at heart.
I am. The funny thing is...
So he was not happy in London.
No, because basically, grew up in Calgary, which, like, as you guys know, is not that big of a city. And then I did my master's in Newcastle, which is also a small city up north in the UK. And then the whole time I was like, I would visit Rose when she was in London, but like the whole time I was like adamant. I was like, I don't want to live in London. It's too big of a city, blah, 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 blah. And then of course ended up getting a job there. So I kind of like was not forced, but I was just kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to London now. And ended up there for 4 years.
Okay, so let me tell the story of what actually happened. So,
okay, let's hear your side.
So, Daniel and I were, we met in university, as you guys know, and we were studying in university. And when we were graduating, I wanted to live. So I had gone on exchange a couple of times. So I lived in Italy and I also lived in Singapore, and I wanted to do another like living abroad experience as a grown, like working woman, if you will. And I love Europe, so I decided to go to London because it's an English-speaking place, and I wanted to get like a proper job, like an office job kind of thing. Yeah. And so anyways, I was trying to convince Daniel to come with me because Daniel and I both like to, go on adventures. But Daniel has a bit of a, how do I say, paranoid side. Where you overwork, like, whereas I'm kind of like, let's do it. Let's just go and see what happens. Yeah. I'm more so like, I want to have this experience, Whereas Daniel was like, what if I can't get a job? I shouldn't go there without a job. Like when I moved to London, I just applied for the working holiday visa and I just went and I had no job prepared, nothing prepared. Like I had nothing. I didn't even have a place to live until I got there. So I found a place to live there. Whereas Daniel was like very, what do you call like overcautious? Not over, you know what? You're probably just like regular cautious. I'm probably more so like, whatever. Anyways, so I was trying to convince Daniel to come to London, but because he was kind of wanting to, right? Because you kind of wanted to live somewhere else.
I did,
but yes, but you were scared because you didn't have a job lined up and you kind of need that security, which, understandable, fair enough, right? But I was just like, well, if it doesn't work out, you can always move back. It's not a big deal, like all that stuff. Yeah. It's not like we have a family to support. Anyways, so I moved to London, but then Daniel still wanted to, do, and plus Daniel is actually, you have a UK citizenship, so it's easier for you. So that's why I was like, you should just come anyway. Yeah. Anyways, so I ended up going to London, but then Daniel ended up deciding to apply for a master's program in Newcastle because he still wanted to go and live, I guess, in the UK, but he wanted to make sure that he has something lined up, like, a program or a reason to go.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what happened. And then he ended up moving to Newcastle, and I was I was in London while Daniel was studying in Newcastle. So we visited each other a couple times, and then you ended up getting a job in London, and then we lived together for like 6 months.
Yes, that's right. That is the
goddamn the adventures.
I know, it's exciting. I think I've changed a bit now though, like because I'm still a bit cautious. Like I like to have stuff lined up. Like going to Spain, I had this program lined up, for example, but my move back to Calgary, I literally am coming to Calgary with nothing. Well, not nothing.
Okay. First of all, little dramatic.
Yeah, true.
Calgary's home. It's different.
That's true. That's true. But it is a bit scary.
You're not really being cautious. I mean, you are being cautious in a sense.
It is.
Well, you're not being cautious. Yeah.
Yeah, but it is a bit scary. Like I literally am coming back to Calgary with like, God damn.
Well, you have your parents. This is not really,
Yeah, no, true. I have my parents and I have savings, so it's not like the end of the world.
People actually move to big cities with $20 in their pockets, Dad. It's not like that, okay?
That's true. That's very true.
But, I do understand like why you want to be cautious. I do get that like, aspect, especially because like we grew up in Calgary where I feel like people are just generally more cautious. So we're surrounded by that. People are more careful. They're more like, homey. They don't want to like leave the bubble of comfort. So that's something that we grew up with. So it's something that we are probably more prone to. There's less people like me. Yes.
Yeah. But no, it's
because I was like, woohoo, let's go and live abroad. Whereas everyone's like, but that's scary.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that's one of the like pros/cons of Calgary though. One of the pros is it is a very like, you can get a decent job. Well, it was like that before the crash and everything, but it's like it's a very like isolated little community. Do you know what I mean? It's like not self-contained, but it's like a really like nice little bubble. But then at the same time, people are a bit sheltered, overcautious. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it has two sides of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, because life,
it's like Pleasantville. Have you seen that movie?
I have. Yeah. It's because overall, like, other than when the shit hit the fan with the oil prices and stuff, like Calgary is a pretty comfortable place to live. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
So should we tell people about Calgary? Because people are confused. They probably don't know much about the city.
Oh, true.
So let's tell them a little bit about the. Oh my God, my dog's going crazy. So Calgary is a city in Alberta. Oh my gosh, goddamn. I do apologize. This will pass. So yes, it's a city in Alberta, which is the province. And Alberta is known for what, Dan?
Oil and gas and cattle farming.
Oh God. It's supposedly the most conservative province. And it is the most conservative province in Canada.
Calgary's like the Texas of Canada.
Yes, they do call it the Texas of Canada, which is, disturbing, but it's kind of true. The way people think is very conservative here.
Yeah.
So traditionally I don't know why we're talking about Calgary, but we're off on this tangent. Let's just go for it.
We're rolling with it.
So Calgary traditionally is a very heavy oil, not just Calgary, but Alberta is very heavily oil and gas driven because there's a lot of oil here. I don't fucking even know.
Yeah.
Yes. So everyone wants to be, except for me and Daniel and a few people, they want to be in oil and gas because that's where the money is or was, right?
Yeah.
And so for many, many years, Alberta, made a lot of money compared to the rest of So even after when we graduated, it was still doing very well. Yeah. And, everyone, even after just graduating, you could still get a job that was pretty high paying.
Yeah.
And do pretty well for yourself.
Yeah.
So it was comfortable in that sense. People were kind of spoiled here.
Exactly.
To put
definitely.
It
it's true.
Yeah.
But this is why, because Calgary has that kind of or it did up until the time when the oil prices dropped, is it had that kind of it was a comfortable place to live. You could finish school, you could get a pretty high paying job. Cost of living relative to other big cities is fairly low, comparatively rent and all of that kind of stuff. So you could save quite a lot of money. It's a very comfortable, safe place to live. But
yes,
that's where it kind of ends is with regards to excitement or things going on. You're right. Everyone, because of that, they're more, I don't know, they're just sheltered, not sheltered. I don't know if that's the right word, but kind of
it's kind of like keeping up with the Joneses type of lifestyle where people just want the big house. They want to all live in the suburbs. It's not like a big city mentality at all, which is why I don't feel like it feels like a big city at all to me. It's very our downtown is very small and not many people live in downtown. It's kind of like a ghost town at nighttime, unless you're in certain parts of downtown. Whereas in other big cities, downtown is booming at night,
Yeah, this is true. But I think, we are slowly, but I don't know how, I haven't lived in Calgary for so long, but we're starting to see more condos and stuff going up downtown. So hopefully.
Are we?
Yeah, there's like, since I've left, there's been so many new buildings downtown for like more condos for people to live and stuff.
Right.
Like that whole like waterfront development by Eau Claire, that's all been up, that all kind of went up right as I was leaving. And like a couple buildings that you've lived in, I think were put up after I left.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll see what happens with the city. But all of that being said, even though it is like conservative and all that stuff, again, like Daniel said, there are good things. Like, for example, it's apparently it was voted the cleanest city in the world.
Yeah.
At some point. Yeah. And it's also consistently in the top 10 of the best places. Yeah, most livable places in the world. So I think this year was like top 4 or something like that.
Yeah, it was top 4. Yeah,
it was the highest above in Canada.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, well, one, proximity to the mountains and like wildlife, that kind of stuff. But also, just again, a lot of it's down to when you have relatively good salaries and low cost of living. It makes it a nicer
standard
city
of living
to live
is
in.
high.
Exactly. So you have a good standard of living. So it is a good city in those aspects. But, Rose and I, being the adventurers that we are, we wanted a different experience, and we wanted to
move to a big city.
Yeah, we wanted to jump across the waters and explore living life in the UK.
Okay, so let's talk about the big city experience, Daniel. How would you say overall your experience was?
Oh God, I think it's I have, again, everything has its pros and cons. I really did enjoy my time in the UK. Will I go back to live there? I'm not sure.
And why do you say that, Daniel?
There's a lot of, I don't know. I think the way to sum up life in London, and we used to talk about this all the time, everything in London is a little bit uncomfortable. You remember how we used to always be like, no matter what you want to do. Yes,
I used to always say that.
Yeah, like this was like our
thing. An obstacle.
Exactly. It's like even for example, remember when you came this year on holidays, before we went to Malta, you arrived in London and you had to get like your bank card and you had to go to like a different branch and you had to go here and do something else. Yeah. And then you were like, God damn it. And I remember you texting me because I was at work. And you were like, Daniel, why does everything have to be a little bit uncomfortable here? They have to take me to different banks and like, so.
But I think it's also because we live in such a comfortable environment here. So I didn't realize that until I was living in London. And it's not just like things you have to get done, but just like, I don't know, just the vibe, like, because things are a bit more crowded. So it's obviously a little bit more uncomfortable because, you're standing in the tube and
Well, naturally, because London's such a dense city, and whenever you live in a bigger city, naturally everything is going to be a bit more uncomfortable because you're right. You're going to have now all of a sudden lineups and queues for everything. Like I remember in Calgary,
they love the queues, don't they?
God, I know. Like when I was living in Calgary, at least before I moved, I don't know if it's still the same because I haven't lived there for like almost 6 years. But before, when I used to live in Calgary, I pretty much like never made a restaurant reservation. I would just like show up. Most restaurants you could just like, walk in for the most part. Like I never remember making reservations, very rarely, unless it was a big group. But in London, if it's even 3 people, you should make a reservation depending on the day of the week. Do you know what I mean? Because it's just, it's like things like that. It's like, it's same with like, little things like if you want to go get your hair cut. Well, again, you will need an appointment. You'll need whereas quite often in Calgary, you could like walk into a salon or something,
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Everything's just a little bit more tricky.
Yes. So the thing for me, I've always wanted to live in a big city. I like big cities. I like the kind of hustle and bustle, if you will. I like the excitement. I like lots of people. I like having lots of things to do. I'm a very I like stimulation. I like
Definitely
being able to do lots of things. So that's why I was wanting to live in London. But I think there's something called, did I say it's called like Paris syndrome or something? Have I told you about this?
I don't think so. What is it?
Basically, it's like this, it's like a syndrome where it's not a syndrome. Okay, you know what? Let me Google this stuff. Basically, let me explain it as best as I can before I Google it. Maybe it's completely wrong the way that I'm going to describe it. But basically, it's like this idea where you like romanticize about a certain city, especially cities like that are well known, like Paris, London, New York, maybe. And you think that your life is going to be something like amazing, or you think you're going to go there and like everything's going to be like lights and shine and glamour and amazing. So it's like Paris, right? So everyone thinks like Paris is so glamorous and romantic and, the Eiffel Tower and everything's just like, wine and baguettes and all this goodness. But then you actually get there And you realize that, you know, it's still a city with people and it's probably dirty. It probably smells. There's like negative shit about it. But yeah, the Paris syndrome is kind of like where you just romanticize at least. Okay, now let me read you the definition.
Okay, let's hear the definition.
Okay. Okay, I think it's right. Paris syndrome is a psychological condition experienced almost exclusively. Wait. This part I left out. This is hilarious. Okay. I don't know. This is the first description. I don't know if this is correct, but it says Paris syndrome is a psychological condition experienced almost exclusively by Japanese tourists.
What?
I know. Who are disappointed when the city. Maybe that's where it came from. Like maybe Japan made up the term. I have no idea.
Yeah.
By tourists that are disappointed when the city of lights does not live up to their romantic expectations. So, but let me read the actual Wikipedia definition. Oh yeah, so it is something that was made up by Japanese people, apparently.
Okay.
So it's a condition exhibited by some individuals when visiting or going on vacation to Paris as a result of extreme shock at discovering that Paris is different from their expectations.
So would you say that you kind of had not exactly a Paris syndrome because it's slightly different, but you had a
London syndrome.
A London syndrome in a sense that you went on that holiday when I met you in like 2013 or something.
Yes.
And obviously when you're on holiday, any city that you go to on holiday, it's like amazing. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like again,
you have the holiday goggles.
Exactly.
Holiday goggles on.
You have those rose-colored, holiday
vacation goggles.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, everything's amazing.
Can we make a little note though? In the UK, when people go on vacation, they call it holiday. But I think here, a lot of people get that confused.
Yeah.
So in North America, people say holidays for like Christmas time.
Okay.
But they usually don't. At least that's what like my experience. What do you think? Am I right?
I don't actually remember. I haven't been to Canada for so goddamn long. I can't remember.
Everyone in the UK says holidays for any sort of vacation. They never say vacation.
They don't say vacation.
They always say holidays.
Really. Yeah.
So I'm going on holiday. Yeah. Whereas like I remember this because like when I was first in the UK, I went on a date with this guy and he was like, I was like saying something like, oh, I'm going on vacation. He's like, oh, you're so North American calling it vacation.
Oh.
He's like, it's called holiday. I'm like, what? Anyways.
And you only had one date with him, didn't you?
No, I think I went on like 3 dates with this guy. Okay. Oh my gosh. Anyways, that's a different story. Yeah. Check out our dating podcast on Patreon.
Oh God.
Anyways, sorry. What were we saying? I totally forgot.
Oh yeah, no, I was saying.
Oh yeah, London.
Yeah, so I was saying you almost, because so obviously the Paris syndrome is a little different in a sense that it's like you romanticize the city before you get there on holiday. You get there and it doesn't live up to your expectations. But I think that you had a slightly different London syndrome in a sense that you went there on holidays, had your rose-colored glasses, were like, this city is amazing, blah, 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 it's beautiful. And then you moved there and reality sunk in.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So I think this is what happens to a lot of people. Like they go on vacation or holiday and they, I think Nari's eating leaves, but that's okay. Yeah. So yeah, they go on vacation or holiday or something. And again, when you're on vacation, you are in a completely different mindset. You are not working. You are not living the regular life that people live. You are doing fun things and every day is like fun or whatever. Whereas when you live somewhere, you still have the same responsibilities as an adult. You still have to get a job. You still have to go to work. Like all of those same things still exist in that city. And I think a lot of people conflate their vacation to like reality. So they think, oh my God, like if I live here, I'm going to like do exciting things every day and like blah, blah, blah. And it's amazing. And plus you only go to the nice things, right? So when I was in London, you know, I stayed at your lovely aunt and uncle's place, which is very nice in a nice neighborhood.
Exactly.
Obviously they're established in London. They're not like, you know, poor, you know, kids right out of university. Yeah. So, you know, they live in a nice neighborhood. So clearly they live in a place that we would not live in at that time. Yeah. And then we went to like the nice places. We went to like Trafalgar Square. We went to like Covent Garden. We went to all the nice areas. So I'm like, ooh, it's so fancy. It's so lovely. It's so nice. And everyone's speaking in this lovely accent. Yeah. And everything, my life is going to be absolutely glamorous and fantastic. Mm-hmm. And then you move there and then you realize, A, I can't afford shit.
I know. This is the thing about London. The stark reality is it is so goddamn expensive.
Oh my God, is it ever? And this is okay. So this is like expectation versus reality. The expectation is that, oh, it's expensive, so therefore I'm going to be paid a decent amount based on how expensive the city is. Nope. Reality is you're still going to be paid shit, and you're going to have to suffer.
Yeah, and you know the crazy thing is actually I feel like in London, like I mean, obviously, like by the time I left London, I was on pretty decent money. But like when I was first living there, I was probably making less than what I was in Calgary and paying.
Oh, I 100% made a huge amount less.
And yet all of my costs were like 4 times what I was paying in Calgary. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like to put it into context.
I remember. Yeah. Sorry. Continue.
I was going to say to put it into context. Like, and when I first moved there, I was living with Rose in like a 4-bed house. And we weren't in like a bad area, but we weren't in the best area either. So, we were in zone 3, and that whole house to rent. So it was just like, I think it was £2,200 a month for all 4 of us.
Right. And that's considered like a steal.
Yeah. And that's considered super cheap. That's like, whoa, like how did you get this deal? You know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I remember before I moved, again, expectation versus reality. So I was obviously looking at different different flats to see like how much it's going to cost me and all of that good stuff. Now at that time, this was like pre-Brexit vote and all that stuff. So London economy, like British economy was doing relatively well.
Yeah.
So the pound was literally like, how do I say this? Like £1 was worth 2 Canadian dollars at that time. So literally everything was double. So, but then things would still be expensive. So I felt like I was paying double.
Yeah. And
I remember at the time when I first moved there, people were like, oh, when you earn the pound, like it'll be fine. Like, cause you're going to be earning the pound. I'm like, but I'm not like, it's still the same in terms of like how much I'm spending. Like I don't get, anyways, it doesn't matter. So, so I was looking at different flats and looking at different prices. And I saw that like single bedrooms were like around 500. They started around like $400 or $500 in like, or £400 or £500 in like zone 2. And I wanted to live in zone 2 at the time.
Yeah.
Zone 2. So London is divided into like zones. If you've never been there. So zone 1 is like the central London. Yeah. And then the further you go, the zone numbers get bigger. So most people like to live in like within like zone 3, I would say. Yeah. When you get to zone 4, you're getting a little bit far away, right?
Yeah.
So I was looking and I was like, oh, I could probably get a place for it. So my budget was around £500. Little did I know, £500 gets you a shoebox.
It does get you nothing.
Oh my God, the places I've seen. Oh, it still haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
Some of these places.
And the scary thing is too, like, I don't know how you found it. Like, well, and it was like this when I was looking for places as well. The numerous times I did this in London, especially when the economy was doing well, is like flats would get taken like this. Like if you didn't make the decision right then and there, it was gone. Like there was like no time. Yeah. You'd have no time to think. And like, you know, you have this like mentality, like in Calgary, you might have like had a nice 1-bedroom flat, rented by yourself. And then you move to London and reality is you're going to be sharing a flat with like 6 other people
yes.
for the same price.
God. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. And it's going to be a shithole.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so basically because London is there's a lot of transitional people like Daniel and I, for example. Yeah. So people that aren't there for a long term. So they have a lot of things like called flat shares. Mm-hmm. So like basically someone like buys or rents an entire flat and then they rent out each individual room separately.
Yeah.
So that, you know, you don't really have to sign a contract with like 4 other people that you don't know, but you can just, so it is kind of a good system. What they have. Yeah. But the thing is, because there's so much money in London rent, so a lot of these places will convert like the living room area. So like most flats will have, let's say like 2 or 3 bedrooms and then a living room and a kitchen and all that stuff. But they'll convert the living room into another bedroom so that they'll have an extra bedroom to rent out. Yeah. So you don't have a living room. Okay. And the kitchen is usually very small. And a lot of the places I saw, I don't know about you, Daniel, I don't know how many places you saw because you just moved in with us, but a lot of places I saw did not even have a dining area. So like the kitchen wouldn't have a table. You would just cook and then
go eat in your room.
Fuck, that's so depressing to me.
I know. And you'd be paying like £600-700 a month for just that.
Yes. So like my bare minimum like expectation at that time was that I wanted to at least have a dining area, like at least a table to sit at and eat because I don't like. And plus the rooms, because my budget initially was £500. The rooms would be so tiny that, again, you couldn't fit a desk in there. It would just fit. Little did I know, a single bedroom meant it will only fit a single bed. And you know how small those single beds are, Daniel. Oh, goddamn.
It's crazy.
I'm a pretty small person, but still, goddamn.
I know. It is insane. Like, and some, like I did see one flat. It was so funny. Speaking of like making rooms into more like bedrooms and stuff. So I went and saw one flat. It was like an apartment, and I went up to the top, and they had like taken, it was like, obviously it had been a bigger bedroom, and they decided to divide this bigger bedroom into 2 bedrooms. But the way they had done it is they had put up this like, I swear it was like a paper mache wall. Like it was so thin. And like the 2 rooms, like because of the way they had split it, they shared the window as well. So it's like not like you had your own window. It was like,
oh no,
it was just so bad. And I just remember, and it was
so horrendous.
And that was £750 a month.
Was that it? Was that the place in Shoreditch?
Yeah, it was in Shoreditch though.
Oh god damn! See, this is the thing. It's all about location in London, right? So if you want to live in a nice location, you are going to be living in a shithole of a place.
Yeah.
Unless you have a lot of money, obviously.
Yeah, unless you're making like crazy money. But again, like just starting out in London, like, you know, reality of it is, especially if you're just moving over there, you don't have a job or whatever, you're not going to be all of a sudden on such a great salary, you know?
Yeah. Do you know how much I was making in London when I first got there, Daniel?
I can't remember.
£17,000 a month, a year.
I was going to say a month. Goddamn, you be banking.
To give you an idea, when I was living, so £17,000 at that time in Canadian dollars, which I mean, now it would be less, but in Canadian dollars, because Canadian dollar was, you know,
it would be what, like 34,000?
So like, I can't do math right now. So
it would be about 34,000.
Yeah, 34,000. So I was making 34,000, the equivalent of 34,000 Canadian dollars at that time. And my job before that, I was making 48,000 Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
So I took 14,000 Canadian dollar
pay
deficit.
And how much did your costs go up, Rose?
Oh God. Okay. So initially, because my mindset was that my expectation was that I would pay £500 a month for rent.
Yeah.
But because of all of the shitholes I've seen, I was like, there's no fucking way that I can, cause like, you know, like not to sound spoiled because we are kind of spoiled. But like, you know, I was there on a working holiday. I didn't have to live in London, right? So I was there for an adventure.
You did it as a choice.
Of course, it was going to be yes, I did it as a choice. And to go from living in a very comfortable, like big, especially because Canada is a big country. So, you know, unless you live in like the middle of the city in Toronto, you're going to probably live in a pretty relatively big space. So that's what we're used to. So to go from that to living in what could only be described as very like, you know, like a cupboard. It felt like I was like living like why would I choose to live? So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna up my, you know, budget a little bit. And we saw this place that was like £700. So basically I upped my budget to £700, which at that time was 1,400 Canadian dollars
a month,
which is insanity. A month. Yeah. Yes. And to give you an idea, where I live now, which is a very nice flat, and I have the master bedroom, I pay a little bit more than my friend, my roommate, and I pay a little over $1,000. I mean, I think I pay like, what do I pay? $1,100, $1,200 or something like that. Oh God,
that's amazing.
And this is a 2-bedroom, like, you know, we each have our own bathroom.
Yeah.
There's a gym in the, you know, it's just so different.
Yeah.
But obviously we can't compare Calgary to London, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, the costs of being in London, and then you have to factor in. So you have that cost of finding your place and everything else, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that you potentially might not be making the same, depending on your situation.
Right.
You might be making less, because it's not like you said before. It's not like you move to London and because it's so expensive, you know, even minimum wage and everything else is so much more. It's not like you know, it's just not.
It's not. You're not, and it's the same with like New York, for example.
Yeah.
People make shit like. Unless you are obviously higher up or you're in finance or something, you're probably not going to be making, if you're right out of university, you're going to be making like not that much money in a place like New York. Right.
But this is why, well, this is another side issue, but in London, I just don't know how people like, you know, especially starting out of uni, you know, finish uni, have debt, go into a new grad position, maybe get £25,000 a year in London.
Which is a lot.
Yeah.
For a new grad position.
Exactly. And their rent is like, you know, £850 or £800 a month. And, you know, it's like, it's hard to save. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's crazy. Like, what was your rent at the last place that you lived in London?
So the last place was the most expensive I lived in. And it's because it was just a 2-bedroom apartment with just me and Lydia. It was actually really nice. It was 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It was like Canadian style, actually.
It was actually quite nice.
Yeah, because you stayed there. It was quite spacious. And that was £850 a month plus bills.
That's not include. Yeah, so £850 a month plus bills. That's like a significant amount of money.
Yeah, so I think it probably with bills with bills and everything, it was probably closer to $950.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, goddamn. So, that's the thing. It's like, of course, like, don't get me wrong. I had a great time in London. There was I wouldn't take it back at all. I have no regrets. I love living there. It was fun, even though it came with a lot of struggles.
Yeah.
But I think the struggles are important. I think it's good to because if I had just stayed here, it would have been so comfortable. But is that character development? I don't think so.
Exactly. Well, and I think I mean, who would have thought that now, if you're ever faced with a situation where, the walls or the ceiling starts flooding and water comes down from the roof, you'll know how to deal with it.
Unless your apartment has ever been flooded, your character is not fully developed. I'll tell the story. Can I tell the story?
You can tell the story. Go for it.
Oh my God. So have I had some living situations in London? So the first place I lived in, the place where we paid £700. So me and Chrissy, my friend Chrissy, we moved to London at the same time together. So I convinced Chrissy to go on a working holiday to London with me. So we went together and we decided to get a place together. So first place we found, we were paying £700 a month each, I believe. And we each had our own room. But it turns out our landlord was absolutely
shady
crazy.
As hell.
Yes, and he was so fucking shady, and he wanted us to pay in cash our rent, £700 a month in cash, and he wanted us to bring it to the rental office every month. So anyways, long story short, ended up having a huge fight with this man, and after 4 months, we moved out. So we moved out earlier than we had anticipated. And then we found a place in Shoreditch. So again, location was so Shoreditch is like a trendy area in East London, and it's very cool. There's lots of bars, restaurants and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so it's quite expensive to live there. So we found a place there for the same price. And it was a 2-bedroom. So just me and Chrissy. But it was a fucking shithole.
Oh my God. It was that house.
My God. I have nightmares.
It was just so tiny.
It was more gross than anything. I think I could deal with the tininess almost.
Yeah.
Because the rooms were actually pretty spacious. We didn't have a living room. So we had 2 bedrooms. But the kitchen was very tiny and the bathroom was fine. It worked, but it was so dark and dreary. I don't know how to describe it.
And your cell phones didn't work in there, did they?
Oh my God, my cell phone did not work. My cell phone had no reception in the fucking, in my own goddamn apartment. And I remember I was talking to one of my friends and they were like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, is this the standard? Are my standards too high to expect my cell phone to work in my apartment? I don't know. Anyways, so long story short, we moved there and we're paying the same price, which is again a big steal. Believe it or not, £700 per person in Shoreditch is a huge steal, but it was a shithole. Anyways, we lived there and it was fine. We went out a lot. When you live in a shithole, you tend to go out a lot and socialize more. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And, but one day I remember they gave us a notice, after 3 months or something, saying that we have to vacate in a month because they're demolishing the building. Okay. My God, this is bringing back all the right memories. Okay. So they're like, yes, we're going to demolish this building. And we're like, what? We kind of thought it was sketchy because they didn't ask for a damage deposit, which most places would. Oh yeah. So they told us to move out. So fine. We're like, hey, whatever. We've done this before. We can do it again. So we started looking for other flats.
Yeah.
And this one day after we looked at 3 flats, we came home and then this was on Saturday. And then on Sunday, we're like, okay, let's make a decision about which flat to live in. But me and Chrissy were going to go out that day and just kind of chill, not think about it too much. So we're getting ready to go out. And as soon, literally this is 5 or 10 minutes before we were about to head out. So thank God we were still there. But all of a sudden, Chrissy was in my room and she looks at me and she's like, do you hear that? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you hear? And she's like, does that sound like water or something? And I was like, and I could hear water and it sounded like it was coming out of a faucet or something, right?
Yeah.
So it sounded like water dripping. So I was like, oh my God, maybe I left the faucet on in the bathroom. So I opened my bedroom door and the bathroom was right across of me. Yeah. And I open the bathroom door and there is literally, guys, I'm not joking. There is water gushing out of the ceiling light. Okay. Oh my God. I still get nightmares when I think about this. Oh God. So then me and Chrissy naturally start screaming and we start freaking out. We're like, what the fuck do we do? Right.
Yeah.
So then I can't remember what happened, but then water started also gushing out of not gushing, but falling out of my bedroom light too. So I started moving all of my shit into Chrissy's room.
Yeah.
And just freaking out. And then we had to call the fire department. So we had to call 911 or whatever the equivalent is.
Yeah.
And then it took them 20 minutes to get there. So we put a pot underneath the fucking water so that it would catch the water so the apartment wouldn't flood.
Yeah.
And then I think what happened was somebody got pissed off and broke one of the pipes upstairs because people were pissed off about, having to move out, obviously. Yeah. So I think someone like broke one of the water pipes.
Oh, God
and
damn.
Then, oh my God. So the whole apartment like flooded. So we had to go and we had to move into like our friend's place for a bit before we moved into our new flat. And then a year later, I found out that the person who owned the building was illegally letting it out.
Yeah, and it was
for like years.
Yeah, the building was supposed to be demolished like years ago.
Yeah, it was supposed to be demolished years ago, and this guy was like, just living above the law.
Yeah,
and I think he went to jail.
God damn.
Oh, so yeah, damn.
This, I mean, to be fair, this kind of stuff happens, everywhere, but I just feel like London, because of the real estate or in the rental market there, it just seems to be like a hot spot for like slumlords and like crazy, like.
So much so.
Yeah. And I think like another thing that I experienced more so living in the UK, because like I guess in Canada, I never really had roommates and stuff because I just live with my parents.
Yeah.
But
the roommates.
Oh God, I just had I had some good roommates and some people that I became friends with, but I also have had because of the transient style of life in London. And it's like, let's say you do a house share where there's like 6 bedrooms and like each person is renting a separate room. It's very like people come and go and like I don't know, you meet so many interesting characters.
People.
Yeah, and just. That's another thing in the big city, though, is you open yourself up to, and you're exposing yourself to meeting a plethora of different people.
Yes, and some are good and some are horribly bad.
Yeah, some are absolutely horrendous, which you never wish to see ever again in your life.
Oh, God.
And I'll leave that
You don't want to delve into this? Okay.
No. But one of the positives, I have to say, so we talked about the expensiveness of living in London and everything else, and another really expensive thing is transit. However, like the Oyster card, the tube card, whatever, your Oyster card for the tube. The thing that I absolutely loved in London, which, I have another, like, I feel like a lot of big cities, they have this nailed, is a really good transit system. So like,
yes,
you don't have to drive. Like in London, the whole time I was actually in the UK, I didn't drive. I was there for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like
nobody drives and no one drives in London. Like it's not like a thing.
Exactly.
People just don't drive there because it's so expensive to drive in London, isn't it?
Exactly. There's like congestion charges. And also, to be honest, like it's just faster to either take the tube or something else because the traffic's so bad. And like, I don't know, like pretty much no one drives. Like the only time you would drive is to leave London to go somewhere else. That's when people drive.
Yeah.
Like within the city, which I think is really amazing because it gives a bit more of vibrance and life to a city because, and it means like after work, people can go for drinks because then they can just hop on the tube and get home. They don't have to worry about being designated driver or whatever else. Or
oh my God, yes, it makes it so much better.
Exactly. Like if it was like that in Calgary, if the transit system was as amazing as it was in London and it was so interconnected, people could stay after work and have a drink and whatever else. But it's like people in Calgary live in, I don't know, Cranston or
middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, like really, really far out. So
middle of nowhere suburbs.
Exactly. So then they commute to work and then they commute out and then the city dies. Like that's one of the issues with Calgary. But London, I love that. The vibrance of being in a big city is there's always so much going on and it's so easy to get around.
Oh my God, I do miss that.
Yeah.
I really do miss that. So that's one really good thing because of the transit and it just makes everything more vibrant and there's so much to do in a big city. God, I just remember every weekend I would be going through, what is that magazine? Time Out magazine?
Time Out magazine, yeah.
So in London, I think they also have one in New York and stuff, but they have this magazine called Time Out where basically they just like talk to you about all the things going on in London and all the events. And every weekend, it was like when you have too much of a choice, I was like, what do we do?
There's just so much to do. Stuff. And the good thing about London too is like, I know we talked about how expensive it is, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do for free as well.
So many.
Like museums, art galleries, unless it's like a special exhibition, like you can go. Like you can go for free.
It's free.
So it's amazing.
Which I think is one of the best things about London.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. And like obviously all the parks and like even just walking around, some of the areas are just so nice. And like also with like going out for food and like coffee shops and stuff, you can find the coolest, trendiest little places like hidden away.
Yeah.
Like that I'm going to miss because it's like freaking amazing.
Oh God, now I really miss London.
But it's, the thing is though, it's nice to go back and visit, right? So we can always have that as like in our back pocket as like we've lived there, which was fun. did our time.
Did our time.
Yeah. And now it's like a nice place to go visit, you know, like it's nice to go and see. And I think also I'm glad that I was there when the age that I was, like being a bit younger, because I feel like in my late 20s, like we were mid to late 20s, it was a good time to be in London.
Definitely. I was there at the perfect time. When I first got there, I liked to party, but I was kind of dying out in terms of like, I didn't want to go clubbing all the time. And London's a good place if you like to drink, but like not necessarily like
go clubbing.
I mean, it is good for clubbing too, but like it has a very big like bar and pub culture.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting for like very young, like it's perfect for young professionals, like 20s to early 30s, like stuff like that.
Yeah. So I think that part of it's fun. I think, you know, I still enjoyed it up until when I left as well, like going out, doing all that stuff. But I think it would be nice to have it in our back pocket as somewhere to go visit again and like go back. You know?
Yeah, and now we know all the places. So when I go back, it does feel kind of like, it is kind of like a second home, but we don't have to deal with the actual realities of living there anymore. Exactly. For example, like the commute, like commuting, as much as we, you know, the transit system is good, but the commute in the morning, goddamn, those tubes are jam-packed and they're never going to put air conditioning in those goddamn tubes.
They don't. They won't.
Oh my God. So they have this, so the tube has many different lines, and the one called Central Line especially gets so fucking hot. So that's like crazy. The central one that goes through like, you know, Central, goddamn. Yeah. And it's so hot in there.
Yeah. Imagine like Rose, the last summer, it got up to 37 degrees one day in London.
Oh my God.
Like it was one of the hottest days I've ever experienced. And I took the Central Line and I was like, I'm going to die. Like I was wearing a full suit and I was like literally like sweating underneath. I was like, this is so bad.
So I do not miss that part.
Yeah. And another really good perk about living generally, well, it's not all big cities. I guess a European big city like London is the cheap flights to the rest of Europe. Like that is
that's
amazing.
Definitely a European only phenomenon.
Yeah, which is so nice. Honestly,
that's so nice.
That's one thing I think that's what I'm going to struggle with the most when I move back to Calgary is the fact that I can't just hop on a plane and be somewhere else for like 40 pounds, return to like Lisbon in Portugal or something.
Oh, yeah. When I was living in London, I remember like, I think almost every month I went somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, you might as well, like it's cheap and you know, like it's accessible, it's close by. Whereas in Calgary or in Canada or in North America in general, if you want to go somewhere like remotely exciting, like we always complain about. Yeah.
You have got to seriously plan.
Oh God.
Which, God
damn. You're gonna miss that for sure, Daniel.
I know. I guess like one of the good things about Calgary though is the fact that we are so close to the mountains. So it's nice to get up to the mountains. Like
it is nice.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I think like when people think about living in a big city or living in a place that, you know, not even just a big city or wherever you are romanticizing about, you know, whether it be a big city or maybe you're romanticizing about living by the beach or something like that. Yeah. The reality is that there's always going to be pros and cons. Of course, and it's never going to be perfect and it's never going to be as good as your expectations. Exactly. Because you always like romanticize about all of these things. Mm-hmm. And reality is, you know, bills are still due, man. Like you still got to go work. You still got to, you know, deal with humans.
Exactly. I think the biggest thing I would say as well is like, even if you've traveled to a place, let's say you had the best holiday ever. Yeah. Just remember that obviously a holiday or vacation is so different from actually living somewhere because obviously like you said, once it's the day-to-day hustle and grind or whatever they call it, it's like bills are due. You have to deal with people. You have to deal with everyday life. All of that is going to follow you wherever you go. Like you can't escape that. So like no matter where you're going in the world, whatever city, it might have some pros and cons, like you said, but you're going to have to deal with life in general.
Oh, God damn. That'd be depressing as hell. I know. So Daniel, if you could live anywhere in the world, any city in the world, where would you live?
Ooh, that's a tough one because some of the cities I was thinking of, I might just have romanticized. You know what I mean?
Yes. This is what happens when you get old. One of the things that I realize I do now is like I take it very literally and I have a very like realistic approach to deciding like on a question like this, which is obviously just like a hypothetical, but like I'm like, oh, well, you know, I would love to live in Italy, but I have no friends there and it'd be hard to get a job or like, you know, like I don't speak the language, you know, whereas like before when I was like, you know, younger, I would just be like, oh my God, I would love to live in like, you know, Italy and Rome and eat pizzas every day and all that shit.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, oh God, what's the most, which place has reasonable housing costs, and can I raise a family?
Well, see, the funny thing is the place that I was thinking of. So there's a couple places I wouldn't mind living, I think. But again, I don't know because I've never been there. Well, I've been there, but I've never lived there. I do like Vancouver.
Okay, yeah.
But the only thing with Vancouver is, again, thinking about how realistic like housing costs and things like that. It's super expensive to live there.
Yeah.
So Vancouver's one. I really liked Melbourne in Australia.
Oh, okay.
So that was a really, really cool city. Like, it's just got so much going on for it. And plus the weather there is so good.
Yeah.
And I think, like, of these places that I've been, those are the main places, like other places I could potentially live. But I don't know about anywhere else. Like, I mean, I'm not sure. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Oh God. Again, I'm so realistic when it comes to this now that I'm like, well, again, there's no perfect place. So it's hard for me as a now realistic 30-something-year-old woman to make a decision on this sort of hypothetical question.
That's true. But it just what's it called? Just entertain us.
I think I would. Yeah. So.
What about Toronto? Didn't you say you were thinking about Toronto?
Yeah, I like Toronto. So I would rather live in Toronto than Vancouver, in my opinion, for me, because Toronto is like my kind of city where, again, it's pretty connected in terms of transit.
Yeah.
And it's a big city. It's exciting. It's fun. But again, expensive.
Yeah.
But I think, out of Canada, I would probably choose Toronto. I also like the idea of Montreal, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I do
but
like
again,
Montreal.
Don't have any friends there. Don't speak French, at least not well. So probably wouldn't live in Montreal. But it's nice to think about. I like London. I would probably live in London again, just because I've already lived there. So I know I can live there. But again, expensive.
Yeah.
Crowded as fuck.
Yeah.
So... But I don't know. Fuck.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, the thing with Toronto is I did live there for a short stint. So
yeah,
and I
didn't like it so much.
But I was really young, so I think if I went back, maybe I could. Like, I haven't been back to Toronto for years, so maybe I need to go back, and because I do love Toronto. Like, I was there like a couple of years ago for the summer, and there's so much going on there. So I don't know. It could be a cool place to live, I think.
Yeah. And I think like the older we get, the more I'm like, oh, I need to be close to my family, and I need to be, close to like friends. I need to know, because like it's harder and harder to make friends. That's another thing. It's like making friends is hard.
It is,
especially in big cities too. People can get very lonely in big cities.
Well, it's just like really, it's a challenge. Like, and like, especially the older you get, because obviously when we were younger, we're in university, we're doing all these things where we automatically have a group of like peers, versus like, even if you work at a job, you might have people like way completely in different places of life than you and not really want to like socialize and stuff. So yeah, it could be really lonely.
But I feel like Daniel's very good at making new friends, aren't you, Daniel?
Oh, goddamn. I'll be a social butterfly.
Oh, goddamn. We should do an episode on making friends as an adult.
We could definitely do that.
I'll ask you questions on this episode because I don't know much.
Oh God, come on, Rose. You are like just as social as I am. Like, don't
no,
even.
I think I'm less. Like, I have a lot of friends, don't get me wrong, but most of them are from, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of long-term friends, but in terms of new friends, I don't have that many.
I have quite a lot, actually.
But I think it's also, yeah, you have a lot of new friends. This is what I'm saying, Daniel.
Yeah,
you can do an episode on how to make friends as an adult.
Yeah. Now, if only I could take this charming friendship face and, charm some man to be my lover.
You charm a lot of men. You just don't want to date them, Daniel.
That's true. That's very true. Accurate.
Oh, God damn. So what else should we talk about? Are we almost done? Oh my God, we should probably go soon. Hey?
Let me see what time. Oh yeah, it's been almost an hour, Rose.
What other reality versus expectation is there?
I don't really know. Oh, I was going to say one thing, and this, again, it goes back to dating, because I feel like we're kind of like partially a dating podcast. Dating. So I think it was you, Rose, that introduced me to a certain analogy about big city life.
The jam?
Yes. So I think that you should tell our listeners about the jam problem and how it applies to London.
The jam theory. Okay, so So there's a book called Modern Romance. It's by Aziz Ansari, the comedian, and he and somebody else wrote this book, and I listened to the audiobook of this book, and I found it really interesting because he basically discusses like, the phenomenon of dating and how it's changed from, back when our parents were dating or like our grandparents or whatever, and how it's changed in modern times, and how now, even though we have so many different ways of meeting people, and even though we are so connected more than ever, somehow we find it harder and harder to find a mate. So he explores this idea in many different facets. So it's not just one reason as to why it's harder, but one of the reasons they say is that in a big city, especially because there are more and more people, there is something called the paradox of choice or something like that, where basically there's way too much choice. And when people are given too much choice, they don't make any decision at all, basically. So he equated this to a study. He basically quoted a study that, don't quote me on this, I'm just thinking from my memory here. But basically, there's a study that was done in somewhere, and in a mall they had in a store a little booth with samples of jam. So they were giving out samples of jam, and they did 2 different variations of this. So one time they were giving out only maybe like 5 different samples. Okay. So they only had 5 different jams to choose from, and people were tasting the 5 different jams. And in another situation, they had 20 different flavors of jam. Okay. So in one situation we have less jam. In another situation, we have more jam.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that when people were tasting the jam, more people were people were trying out more jam when there was, more jam. So like 27 flavors of jam, more people are trying out different flavors. However, much less people purchased any jam when they were given the 27 different options. So a lot more people were buying jam with the less options, even though less people were trying it. So if we equate this to humans, people are dating. So they'll try out a lot of different people, but they will not commit to anyone.
No, but it makes sense. Like it is a very good point. I actually should read this book because
it's so interesting.
Yeah. The thing I find fascinating is you're right. Nowadays with technology and everything else and being in a big city, you have all of these apps, you have all of these ability to connect with so many people, like Tinder, on Bumble, on all of these like hundreds of different ways to meet people outside of your social circle and everything else. And yet we're finding it harder and harder to meet people that we want to settle down with. Like people that we want to be, in a relationship with. And, why is that? Like, that's crazy. Like, you would think.
Because we think that like there's so much more out there maybe, subconsciously.
And then also.
That's
Also with the jam thing, if you're trying all the different types of jam, you're going to get like FOMO or something when you're like, oh, I really like that jam, but I also kind of like that jam. Yes. How do I make a decision? Oh, if I get this jam, I'm going to take it home and I'm going to regret it and want the other jam. Or... it's
decision fatigue. It's totally a legitimate thing. Yeah.
I think we should.
The more options. Oh goddamn! On this topic.
Goddamn, Rose.
The more options people are given.
Yeah.
The less likely we're going to make a decision. So they say that's why they say like if you actually want to make a decision, like you will need to narrow shit down.
Yeah.
Without having so many different options. But it's the same. Like if I walk into a store and there are 5 million things. Like, for example, I walked in. Did I tell you when I went into Goodwill the other day?
I don't think so.
So I did not know that Goodwill was fucking gigantic. So Goodwill is like a thrift store. Okay.
Yeah.
And I went to buy like a little, like Nari's jacket, which she hates and doesn't want to wear. Anyways, because one of my parents' neighbors told me about how like Goodwill has like, jackets for, So I went in there and I didn't realize, this was before Christmas. And I didn't realize that Goodwill has 5 million Christmas items in there. Oh my God, it made me like sick to my stomach a little bit because at first I was like excited, but then I was like, holy shit, we spend so much money on Christmas decorations that we're just going to throw away or not use or whatever.
I don't know why people don't reuse them. This is the thing. Like you can reuse the Christmas decorations. You box them up and use them the next year.
I'm sure they do, but like, oh my God, so many people donated a lot of these. So I would recommend if you need to buy Christmas ornaments or Christmas items, go to Goodwill or go to a thrift store because there's no reason to buy something new. I bought a Christmas tree there, like a fake Christmas tree.
Yeah.
For like $13.
Oh my God,
and I was
going to
buy one I was going to buy one new for like $50. And I'm like, fuck this shit.
Can we do a trip? When we do a trip when I arrive?
Yes. Oh my God. Anyways, when I got there, at first I was excited. And then because I was going to buy some Christmas stuff, but then I was like, there is way too much. I can't think. Like I cannot make a decision because I'll look at one thing and then I'll look at the next thing and then I'll look at the next thing. And I'm like,
and you get overwhelmed.
Okay, I can't decide.
Yeah. It's just too much.
It's the same thing with humans.
Yeah. There's just too much and you're just like, oh God. So maybe actually in that analogy, when I get back to Calgary, my dating life is going to be simpler because I'm used to dating in London where there's like all these options, and in Calgary it might be like much less, so I can make a decision.
Or because you've already been exposed to London, you still can't make a decision because you still have the big city paradox.
God damn. Oh gosh, Rose.
Oh God. This is why they say like, what is the thing? A lot of people they're more happy when they are like kind of living in a simpler like way in a sense.
Yeah.
Because, when you're exposed to like so many different things, now we're kind of jaded because like we're exposed to all these other things. Yeah. So we're never going to be satisfied essentially.
Oh God. On so many levels.
No, I'm just joking. Well, I'm joking on, it's about mindset, right?
Yeah. No,
so we have to understand that this is, oh God, I don't even know what I'm saying, but basically, so this is why big cities, a lot of people stay single for a long time. I think that's part of it. Of course, that's not all of it, right?
Of course, yeah.
So,
that's another reality of living in a big city. Is if you go in there
so
single.
a lot of people think, oh, like it's a big city, there's gonna be so many people and I can meet so many people, maybe I'll find the love of my life and all this stuff. And I'm not saying that it's not impossible, but there's definitely so many people that it's gonna feel overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah. This is very true.
So move to a small town.
Yeah.
And you meet the love of your life living next to you.
Oh, God damn.
God damn.
That's so true.
The boy next door.
Literally. Yeah. All right. Shall we finish off this podcast then with a little...
Yes, I think we shall finish off this podcast. Would you like to provide our vegan nugget today?
Oh, God damn. So much pressure. What is a vegan nugget that I haven't talked about yet? This is hard. These vegan nuggets are difficult.
Right? Should we just talk about a little bit about... Okay, so let's just give the listeners a little bit of a story of how you went, why you decided to go vegan. Just a little nugget. It doesn't have to be advice.
A really quick one. So I was vegetarian before for like 6 months. And then basically went vegan for the month of January. For Veganuary, that like whole like promotion thing that was going on. And I was like, Rose, I was living with Rose, and I was like, you know what, let's do this. And I think the main reason for me though, I mean, obviously there's the ethical side, but like, I really didn't fully understand the environmental impacts of animal agriculture. And I think that for me is the biggest push as to why, I know it should be, everyone has their own reasons, but mine is primarily like the environmental aspect of it. So if you haven't, there's like some really good documentaries I would suggest checking out. One of them was, I think it's still on Netflix, Cowspiracy. So that talks really from the angle of, environmental destruction and everything else. And that was really, for me, an eye opener because, we constantly think about the ethical side of it, but then sometimes I think we forget also the amount of land and water usage to feed the animals that we're slaughtering and for that industry, that we forget about that part of it. So it's pretty crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. So that's the little thing from me. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you watched like a more ethical, like animal rights based documentary?
I haven't actually, because I remember you were going to.
Okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to watch it. Okay.
What was that one called? The really, really bad one that I was scared to watch?
Earthlings?
Yes.
Yes, but there's a new one called Dominion, which I haven't seen. So we should watch that together.
Okay, we will.
Maybe we'll watch it and do a little,
commentary.
Little podcast afterwards.
I think we should.
Oh, goddamn, Daniels.
Why not?
You're going to be an ethical vegan.
Oh, God damn. I'll be ethical,
God damn. Oh, God. You be ethical? You sure about that? Oh, God damn. Anyways. All right, you guys. So that was the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed, found it interesting. Don't forget that for those of you that are supporting us on Patreon, you get the episodes early. So do consider supporting us on Patreon. Again, you also get a bonus episode every single month. Yeah. So that's exciting. So that's patreon.com/the SaVeg Podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram, and all of our links are on our Instagram. So that's the SaVeg Podcast on Instagram. Yeah. And anything else to say, Dan?
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
All right. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.